Now, I know a number of you don't use these taxing tools, but a significant number of you do, and this will be of interest to you. A change of legislation back in 2006, it was that long ago, yet it's only recently come to light that it will have a significant impact on municipalities that differentiate between land and improvements when using these tax tools. I've asked ministry officials to look at this issue and come up with some options, and we're hopeful that we're looking at possibilities through regulation to hopefully address these concerns very quickly. So you can expect to hear more about that in the upcoming weeks as well. Now, as I said at the beginning, a growing economy, an increasing population brings some issues. Issues like the three I just spoke to you about: intermunicipal cooperation, infrastructure, and financial concerns. But I'll gladly take those issues over problems of just a few short years ago: a dwindling tax base and lack of opportunities for our young people. This morning, the Premier spoke about reasons for growth, not growth for the sake of growth, but rather for the quality of life it can deliver to all of us, to help pay for highways, healthcare, and education. That's the reason that people from around the country and around the world want to move here. And I'd like to end today by sharing a few lines with you from a top 40 song from a few years ago that I think really summarizes the new Saskatchewan. Right here, right now, there's no place on earth I'd rather be. Right here, right now, watching the world wake up from history. Thank you so much for your kind attention, and Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to entertain any questions if you like. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the minister? Before you go, Minister, we sincerely... Sorry?
Just have one question.
Oh, go ahead.
My name is Cliff Rose. I'm a councillor with the village of White Fox, and I just want to compliment the Premier and the Minister for the presentation here today. There's been a lot of discussion and mention about cost sharing, and we, of course, appreciate what the province is doing in that respect. But I represent a small village, and it occurred to me that some costs for small villages are not proportional to population. That in some cases, such as water treatment, sewage treatment, and those sort of major infrastructure costs, while they may have some relationship to population, they are not really, I don't think they're calculatable on a per capita basis in every instance. So I'm just raising the point, when the government is looking at the cost-sharing formula, could they consider the idea of a baseline for all communities and then build out on that a per capita ratio? And I think it might be more fair to the smaller communities, because I'm sure the provincial government want to support the development of the small communities where they admittedly see a lot of the business taking place and the growth. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Certainly we'll take that under advisement as we move forward. Both SUMA and SARMA very ably made their point on revenue sharing, and you know, we're trying to weigh our options right now, because certainly we recognize, especially in growing communities, and the bulk of the population as our province expands, you know, the majority of the population growth, even though it's fantastic, we're seeing small towns across the province grow as well. The bulk of the population growth has been in the cities, and so, you know, we recognize that there's a strain on resources there, and those extra people do cause, I guess, a strain on resources, if you will, and a requirement for more funding. On the flip side of that, we also need to keep in mind that in many instances, a lot of provincial revenues are flowing from natural resources that are requiring services provided in rural areas. So, you know, we're looking at that. Hopefully we'll come up with some sort of balance, and I would just remind, as I did earlier in my address, is that, you know, I guess I could see this being more sort of a burning issue, if you will, if there was a situation where revenue sharing wasn't growing or was being scaled back. But there's a situation where more and more and more dollars are flowing into it every year. And as I said, however, whatever we do with the final formula, everybody's going to benefit. Everybody will be getting more money. To your point in the water treatment plant as well, point taken. I think that's why it's so important that we do have a long-term infrastructure program to replace the one that's currently coming to an end.
Any other questions for the minister?
Thank you. Mike Kaminsky from the village of Invermay. In listening to your address, I guess, and hearing our keynote speaker this morning, I would like to think that I would be in the 90%, but the data is more correct. We're in the 82% in terms of the growth in Saskatchewan and the advantage and so on. However, there's another 18% that still live in rural Saskatchewan where, unfortunately, we have those issues that you said we shouldn't be focusing on. And there are a number of communities that are suffering with aging populations, dwindling populations, reduced tax bases, and so on. Now, I say this as a preamble because a number of years ago, there was a task force set up, and I think it was called the Intercommunity Cooperation, and there was a report that was written as well. And I guess my question to you as the Minister of Municipal Affairs is, in looking at the Saskatchewan of the future, is there an effort made through maybe changing some of the legislation? I'm referring in particular to the Municipal Act, and more specifically Section 110, which deals with the certification of administrators in small communities. Let's be realistic about it. The tax base is small. There is no opportunity for full-time employment, yet the requirement states that if you're over a population of 100, you have to have a certified administrator. That would be lovely. I wish we didn't have that problem. But we do, it's reality, and we have to address it. Would you be serious enough in looking at amending the legislation so that there could be, in this movement to the future, so we get communities working together, but effected to empower your local municipalities, the small ones, so they can hire these people without that certification so that they can work. The work is always audited. There's the fiduciary responsibility of councils in place. So it's not as though it's done aimlessly or carelessly, but so that these people can function so that we can work with the RMs or with the larger towns to effectively make that transition to that larger, brighter future.
I would, boy, to entertain that, I would do so cautiously. I'll just be frank with you. No matter what the size of the municipality, if you're a small population but you're still a municipality, you have municipal responsibilities, just like municipalities of any size. And you know, that includes not just an audit, but includes reporting requirements for the provincial government. To believe that under a certain size you don't need quality administration anymore, I beg to differ. I would think what I would encourage you to do instead would be to do what many other communities have done, and that would be to look around at your neighbors and look at some sort of joint administrative agreement for a qualified administrator. To put somebody into an office with no background in it is very difficult, and to expect the end result to be good is, I think, probably not reasonable. So it's certainly not, I don't want to mislead you, it's not on my agenda for any time soon. I would instead encourage municipalities. I just talked about you know, regional planning. I would certainly encourage you to look to your neighbors and do something jointly with them.
I'm not here to debate it, but please do keep in mind that we've had a lot of administrators that were grandfathered from previous times. The legislation was different at previous times where they did not require that certification, and no, there wasn't the chaos you're suggesting. In fact, there's a number of administrators who are on the verge of retiring that were grandfathered who did not have the LGA certification whatsoever.
I would just remind folks that the Urban Administrators Association, I think, generally does a very good job of trying to work with municipalities to, I'm not sure the exact process they follow now, but to have unqualified people either under the direction of a qualified administrator or under some kind of a temporary permit while they become qualified. Yep.
Nat Ross from the town of Pilot Butte. And we have good neighbors in Pilot Butte, the RM, White City, Emerald Park, Belgoni, Edenwold. They're all good neighbors. But periodically, good neighbors can come up with conflict that is hard to resolve. And is there some part of your ministry that we can call, pick up the phone and saying, we're having this conflict, help us?
Yeah, absolutely. We have some very good municipal advisors. A couple of them are here. Bonnie Borndalen and Phil Boyven are somewhere in the crowd. You know, if you'd like, stick around up front for a minute and we'll direct you to some folks that are, you know, very good at trying to attempt if there's some sort of issue that we can help with, we certainly will.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for your questions, and thank you, Minister, for your response. We sincerely appreciate your time and willingness to build a stronger partnership between your government and our members. Please accept our thanks for joining us today. A donation has been made to the Mike Badham Scholarship Fund on your behalf.